Normally, I start these videos off by saying that I don't think it'll take very long to record it. This time, I think it will take a while, and I'm always wrong, so if I say it'll take a while, that means it'll be short. We are looking at TSSM's hardest tricks. It's going to factor quite a few things. It'll primarily be about no pause storage, but you will get brownie points for other categories and stuff. If something's, in another category or harder in another category. But you gotta think about, how inconvenient is this trick to practice, Is there any luck to it? Is there any, feel-based movement to it? How much does it define a run? If you just fuck it up slightly, is it just instant reset? Things like that. And some of these I was debating not being here or whatever, but I feel like found a good, balance. So, I guess we can basically get into it. Yeah, cool. So, again, some of these will, it might be like, maybe they're easier now, but they were hard back then, so, But anyway, the very first one that we're going to be looking at is just disco skip. Not modern disco skip, though. Obviously pre-buffer disco skip. So pretty easy with the buffer. And I got the ledge grab skip. So, this was like one of the first tricks added in the run. And it saves like 16, 17 seconds. So it doesn't save much time, but you can go for it a couple times before before it begins to like close in on breaking even and stuff like that. So the way that this works is that the frame Patrick's damage animation ends, you have a 1-frame window to jump again, and then you'll retain a double jump. The reason, so this would be like, especially back when it was found, it'd be much people were worse with no tricks, really, until this point. Only a few. So, yeah, people used to do this like 16, 15 minutes in or something. Which might not sound that bad, but its time loss could be annoying. Obviously, you would just have times where you just cannot get it, like, for the life of you. But the actual reason, like, why it was hard... Also, this ledge grab skip without a buffer is, like, the most... It's so goddamn hard, but we don't need to worry about that. Nobody... The ledge grab skip without a buffer has, like, nearly never been seen, but it's not even something... It's not like you need it or anything, so not, like, a big deal. It's even a tiny bit hard. It's a little hard, even with the buffer. But the reason why this is here is because this... It's not 100% consistent, really. This game does not run at a consistent 60 FPS. If anything, it hardly touches it. It fluctuates a ton. We don't know the exact frame rates, but it feels sort of like 55 to 58 or something, kind of constant fluctuating. This level in particular feeling a little laggy, BBB is pretty big level. It's one of the bigger ones. I think it's the biggest platforming level that doesn't, like, get divided up into 2 sections. So, this... Because it will not be the same frame rate every single time, the window to press A will not be absolutely 100% identical every single time, which means that it'll never be 100% consistent. Additionally, compared to BFBB, in that game they can practice 1-frame jumps quite easily because goo doesn't damage them, but goo does actually take away health in this game. So you can't practice it. So if you did like 1,000 in a row, it'd be way faster doing battle. Also, Patrick's damage animations kind of suck. He has like 3, and they look very different from each other, so it's a big pain in the ass. So yeah, that's the first one. It's definitely the easiest of all of these. Next up is floating block skip. It's another 1-frame, but it's harder. It's later in the run, saves more time, but it saved even more back in the day, but it still saves like 30-something, so it's like double disco skip. Missing it, if you recover it, it loses 10 seconds, but otherwise, if you die in the fastest way possible, it loses like 17. It's quite a bit of time loss there. And there's a 2-frame token right after this, and this is sandwiched in between a bunch of tricks in this level. BBBH has had very little going on and still doesn't have that much going on now, whereas Now the Man has a lot more going on, is more, you know. So this trick is just objectively harder than Disco, and like, you know, you probably forgot what damage animation you're even on at this point. It's on a cycle from boot up, but because of Disco, you might have got like second try Disco and then just forgot, and then, you know, or you might have accidentally got hit by an enemy or TNT or something, you know. But yeah, this is the same sort of idea, but you cartwheel into the spike and then do the 1-frame jump. And if you have a bad angle or bad jump spacing, then you can't even make it up here. So sometimes you can get the frame and still just not have the height. This trick was such a pain in the ass back in the... And the number of times I've cartwheeled too early and just, you know, fell off the block and died, God, is embarrassing. So yeah, those are the main two. The first two I thought of. Again, this isn't ordered, like, perfectly, but I try to categorize it from roughly easiest to hardest. But again, it's not completely accurate. I didn't want to spend, like, an hour just fucking putting them in the right order. Alright, next up is Fast Corkscrew. It's a fast cycle here. However, if you have good movement, you'll actually make it to the cycle early. So just not making any mistakes and having good movement, and then you actually make it here early. So, your cue... When this block is coming towards the edge of this, then you kind of want to start moving. And if you time it right, it'll start moving back to the left as you go past it. So you really gotta coast along the side, basically. In addition to that, you can make the cycle so late that you get a bad angle here and still miss it. It's kind of weird. You gotta approach it with, like, this angle wouldn't work if I did the cycle, like, as late as possible. I need more, like, if you can see my cursor, I need more, like, this sort of angle. And even then, it's quite precise at that point. And then at the end is a 2-frame token. When this was discovered in 2013, but when this started getting implemented, it was first done for dead runs, but it was done in no major glitches, you know, and at that point... It was like an hour 20 or something into the run. It was absolutely devastating. That's why Mindy Skip made it so much better to do this trick. So much better. Because then we pulled BBBH into earlier in the run. So this trick is a lot harder later on. It loses so much time. There's just instant reset. Unless you go slow and then come back to side. But even in no pulse storage, I would still reset to that. Unless I was on like a guard run beforehand. Or something. But yeah, I mean, that's basically, you know, it is quite hard, but part of the reason why it was hard back in the day is because we couldn't figure out how to make it fit, because we were not fast enough to get here quickly on time, and we just misunderstood the cycle and things like that. Now that we just know what's going on with it, even an intermediate player could probably grind it a lot and still make it maybe, but maybe a practice mod here would be good for people, but that currently doesn't exist. Alright, next up is Sunday Jump. This trick is kinda AIDS, but, we found ways to make it a lot better recently, but it's here because of brownie point shenanigans. So this is what the trick looks like. So, you nitro, it's exclusive to lap 3 on Sunday 1. So it's a lot of build-up. It's kind of a pain in the ass. You need to build up a lot of nitros, you need to stack a lot of nitros, because if you miss it, you go off-road, and you need a lot of nitros to back it up so you lose the least amount of time possible. But if you make it, then you have too many nitros, you gotta kind of spam them and not use them super efficiently, it's kind of annoying. But yeah, you just turn on the ramp during a nitro, and then hopefully you get a good bounce off the rock. I swear to God, it's like slightly, like, luck-based to some degree. There are just times you just get no height whatsoever. It's so bad sometimes. And, this Sunday jump was like, it was alright, but you can definitely get quite a bit faster than this. Probably lost, like, 0.3 or something off, like, a perfect one. There's always, like, some variance to it, I guess. It'll never be fully consistent, is what it feels like, but, again, found a way to make it... like, if you nitro more like, maybe around here, it seems to make it quite a bit more consistent. Because you have more speed preserved, and it seems to, like, give you a better bounce off the rock. But the reason why this is here is because of Sunday 2 in 100% in all tokens. In those categories, there is Sunday Driving 2, which is, you do both time challenges and ring. You don't need to worry about ring. But you get to do Sunday Jump on all 3 laps for both time challenges, which means you do it 6 times. I've only ever gotten it, and if we merge this one as well, I've only ever gotten 7 out of 7 Sunday Jumps twice ever. Like, it's really hard, because you're just playing with, like, 70% odds that late into a run. And 6 spiral skips. And spiral skip... No, it is 8 spiral skips. 8 spiral skips, and it's fucking... That trick isn't that bad, but doing it 8 times, like, by the 8th time, semi-decent odds to, like, kind of miss it. But yeah, like, this... I don't know, when it's just sandwiched in between shit, and it's just like, ugh. It turns Sunday 2 into an absolute nightmare. But again, I'm not putting it any higher because... You know, I'm primarily focusing on no pull storage, and only for having to do it once, and the time loss isn't that bad if it's, you know... Oh yeah, the other thing with this as well, by the way, if you get a bad angle and you don't have enough height, you'll actually get stuck in this rock, because there's an invisible wall here, so you'll get stuck here, and you'll just be soft-locked. You have to reload the level, so obviously instantly kills a run. The only way you could get away with it is if it happens on the time challenge in, like, lap 1 or something, or a later lap if your PB's bad or whatever, but, like a decent run, it would have to be, like, lap 1 for it to, you know, pain in the ass. But it saves, like, 4 to 4.5 if done very well, like, each time, so... At a higher level, you feel like you gotta do it. Especially because the soft lock is uncommon. Alright, there's that. Alright, here's truck skip. I believe you want to look at the right side gameplay. Yes. So, look at the left side gameplay, actually, for now. This is what, like, you normally do here. So, just very basic. The spin here is, like, free. You'll miss it, like, less than 1% of the time. Extremely easy. And then it got replaced by truck skip. And if done absolutely perfectly, it saves, like, 0.6 to 0.7. It is really, really hard and even has an inconsistent factor. So this is precise. You gotta, like, jump to this and then jump, you know, make sure you're doing it quickly. If your jump spacing is too good, you'll jump over the box, the big boxes, so... And then, you need to hope... So how long this cutscene takes to load is a bit random. Depends on your Xbox and your disc, basically, and even then is still partially random. It's possible for the cutscene to take too long to load, and then you won't be past this tree after the cutscene ends. And even then, even if it were consistent every single time, it'd still be really hard, because it's so precise and shit. You need to, like, land, like, on the sort of edge here, because if you land any closer, you most likely won't jump over the thing. And you need, like, perfect jump space. Dude, it's so bad. So, why is it not put any higher? Well, it saves very little. It's literally, like, 20 to 25 seconds in a run. And it's applicable to nearly every category, which means you can get good practice in. And it works, like, just often enough. I've been doing it for a fucking century, it feels like. And by that, I mean since, like... I don't know, like, mid-2021 or something. Do yourself a favor. If you ever decide to get really good at this game, like, please don't do this. Like, you'll hate this fucking game, dude. But... And it saves, like, nothing. You have more time saving, like, every other fucking level. Like, you really don't need this. I'm too far gone, especially because, like, all my world records have it now. And I cared about my sum of best being low a lot. Yeah, that was, like, 43 frames. That's quite a bit. That's, like, 0.7 or 0.6. But yeah, it's just ranked this low because it's quick to practice. It's very quick to reset to in runs, you know. And it works just often enough. By the way, on hard drive, it's kind of even harder because the cutscene loads so fast, so you really do need, like, perfect jump spacing. But then it also removes the inconsistent factor, so I guess that would be better, but yeah, we're not playing on hard drive. Alright, now here's another one. This is guess jumps. So, the frame the tub lands here, you can do you can press A, you have again, like when you land on the thing, you have a 60th of a second window to jump. And then you have another 60th of a second window, and it just keeps going up like that. I fucked it up a little bit, but as you can see, all of these are 1 frames. All the successful jumps are 1 frames. Same thing with, like, the game isn't actually running at 60, so it's inconsistent, etc. Another thing is that, like, this saves, if done perfectly, like, 16 to 17 seconds. It saves a lot, and missing it, on average, loses, like, 15 or 16, and, like, it's very late in a run. It's pretty fucking hard. The frame rate isn't consistent. It's just super easy to choke. You know, I think you get it at that point. I just realized this was absolutely blasting. Actually, it's not that... No, it's not that bad. Nah. I don't know. These all have, like, audio on and shit, so I apologize. I'll need to double check everything before I play it. So yeah, it would have been ranked higher, but first of all, people have been doing this. Cole did it in well, he was playing on GameCube, so it's 30 FPS. Chris has been doing it since 2016. Me and TDS have been doing it since 2018. It's the same old same. In fact, it's easier than it used to be. In a way. This was obviously first done in NMG. You would do this trick twice. And it was later in the run, and that was just evil, but... This is a much faster category. The only issue with that, though, is that if you do miss it, it's like it's effectively even worse because you just lose like even more time. But still, it's still not a proper issue. It's easier than before, quite a bit easier. So yeah, that's the trick basically. All right, now here's another one. Rubber Dub Skip. We're going to be showing it from Rubber Dub 2. Actually, I'll do it from Rubber Dub 1 first, actually. So, you in the first token of every sliding level, you spawn in midair. So you take advantage of that. You know, jump back. And then you start building up speed on the rail. And after enough time has passed, we do have some low-key visual cues. You start holding up around this point, and then you go for like a jump. This game has dynamic jumping, so the longer you hold A for, the bigger your jump is. How much you built up your speed for and when you start moving up and when you start jumping and stuff like that will depend on how long you need to hold A for, but you should be holding it for like a while, if not like the entire time. And then the second jump is just after the rail. And if you did it correctly, you can land on the other side. This trick has a bit of leniency. In fact, there's a 1 frame that you can get. If you press A on the right frame here, you'll preserve speed, and then you can even get like a low key, not that bad, not that good of a setup, and still barely make it. The reason why this is relatively low ranking, and the reason why, there's reasons why. First of all, this is done in Rubber Dub 1 and 2. It saves a little over 3 minutes if done perfectly both times, which means that for both, assuming it's setting them up quickly, you can fail them, I believe, 4 times and still barely save time with them, which is nuts. Additionally, it's not that late into the run. And because it's saving so much, and it's not, and you could accidentally get the 1 frame or whatever, I'd say even, like, intermediate players should be doing this trick, definitely. But, what makes this so bad... My dog is barking outside. What makes this so bad, first of all, you do it twice. And that is AIDS, missing a trick the second time feels a lot worse than missing it the first time. Second, even though it has leniency, when you're at my level, you kind of need to get a first try. There is, like, one exception. I'll get into that later. But, yeah, for pretty much, especially with Rubber 1, if I miss it, I'm just resetting. It loses, like, 15 to 16 to miss. And it's so fucking, like... It's so feel-based. It is so feel-based. You won't have a clue what you're doing wrong until it magically starts working. And then you'll look back at your old gameplay and be like, wow, I was doing it super wrong. But you can't comprehend what you're doing wrong. There's so many little steps that go into it, and fucking up one of them enough, or fucking up two of them slightly is just enough to fuck the whole thing. It's so bad. And if you press A too late, you land back on the rail, on the bridge, and then it was just, and then you gotta, like, either take an L, just die and get grabbed by Hans, or you got one frame jump back up, and it's just like, ugh. You know, it's fucking bad, dude. It's fucking bad. To put it into perspective, actually, I grinded Rub-a-Dub Skip. I have a notepad. I was usually doing it for 100 times a day, but I'd sometimes miss, like, a day, but there were also times where I did it, like, 200 times. There was even a day where I did it 400 times. And obviously, there were times where I practiced it in the middle of my stream, because the trick would just stop working. The number of times, it went from, like, 70% consistency to 40, and then you have to build up to, like, 45, 52, 56, 63, 70. Oh, thank God. Oh, no, now it's 30% consistency again. Now it's 40. Oh, I jumped back up to 60. Nope. Now it's down to 42. Alright, cool. It's so bad. And it's like that until something finally clicks in your brain to where finally it fucking works. And it's not even... This, I still miss it sometimes. Like, I still miss it, like, once or twice a stream on average. And because it's so feel-based, one thing I've learned was with feel-based tricks, when... Like, you do just have off days with them sometimes. You just will have an off day. And it will just absolutely not work the whole fucking time. And then even when it does, sandwich driving has something to say about it. Like, ugh. And I'm not even to the final reason on why this trick is so bad. That is shown in Rub-a-Dub 2. Because it is a lot harder in Rub-a-Dub 2 than it is in Rub-a-Dub 1. First of all, you've already done more things. You know, how good you are at tricks, like, you can be good at them, but they'll still technically be, like, statistics, you know, how often you get them. At this point, like, you've already nailed, like, everything, and so you're kind of not statistically likely to get, like, the next things, you know what I mean? But that isn't the actual reason. This is the reason. I don't even know if I got it on my PB. Yeah, I did. So, those were one frame jumps. You actually spawn on the bridge this time. And if you don't want to lose, like, 7 to 8 seconds, you gotta do a one frame jump, and you gotta do another one frame jump. And then, your angle for building up speed is worse than before. The angle's slightly off. Your camera angle and shit, it's just, like, slightly different from before. So when I said, like, it's usually fine for me to miss this as long as I get the one frame jumps. But yeah, like, it's just, ugh. And again, like, the rest of it is the same, but it's just, like, an objectively harder version of the trick. And you can just take, like, the 7 to 8 seconds of time loss and it's identical, but obviously for me, it's difficult to justify that. I think my PB is, like, a minute 27 off the sum of best, which is the highest it's been for a while. I'm also doing the hardest tricks I've done in a while, but when you factor that on average I miss these jumps, it's more like a minute 20, and then that's a lot harder, you know? Like, just instantly, missing this trick just instantly makes it a way harder to PB. It's so bad. And this is in a lot of categories, too. In 100%, this is over 2 hours in the run. And yes, in my PB, I was on a guard run, and I choked, and I missed it twice. Dude, that was after a big streak of getting it a lot as well. So annoying. Because the rest of the run was super godlike. So it was literally just like Rub-a-Dub Skip waiting room, and I could just miss it again. The one frame jumps on in Rub-a-Dub 2, though, in Hundo. But still. So yeah, but yeah, the reason why this is so low is because you can just get the one frame on the wood and then not even have to have a good setup. You can get a lot of fluke successful attempts. If you're like an intermediate player or beginner, it doesn't matter that much. This shit only really matters at the high level when you need to get it within like a couple tries or even one try. You know? So yeah, it's a pretty horrible trick. Alright, next up is Bulldozer setup. Actually, no, not Bulldozer, it's Fence. Bulldozer is hard, but it's probably not warranting being on here, but I guess look at the right... So, at this point, we've grabbed the checkpoint, and we're turning around and reversing, and because we needed to... because of the way the checkpoints work in this game. And look at the right side gameplay. So you just, like, turn around, position yourself a little bit... Wow, that setup was terrible. I think you can tell that the Bulldozer setup was new at this point. But yeah, you have to nitro on the right part of the dirt pile. It's hard, but it's not that bad. The thing, well, I won't get ahead of myself. I'll just say that this is kind of hard, but the actual really, really bad one is fence setup on the left. You would bonk on the fence, get your ass on there, and then because of an invisible wall, you have to literally go fucking... Look at this. Like, you're fucking edging, bro. And then you have to, like, reverse very carefully at an exact angle. And then turn around because there's invisible walls everywhere. And then you want to nitro quickly. But if you have a bad angle, you'll just bonk on invisible walls. This trick nearly ruined the game. The only reason why I didn't was because Bulldozer got found. In categories like no major glitches, you could do this 3 times. Like... fucking 3 times? Like, okay, this trick saves like 10 seconds over just going around casually, right? I never, for like the month or 2 that this trick existed, I never got it perfectly in both sandwich drivings. Never. Never happened. And I was grinding the category a lot. It literally never happened. Whereas Bulldozer did not take too long. Bulldozer, don't get me wrong, I fucking hate Bulldozer, but, like, Fence loses, like, a second, and it's way harder because of how unbelievably inconsistent it is. Words can't do it justice. It's horribly... Whatever consistency you think it is, it's not consistent. So if anything, the word consistent is a fucking lie. There's no consistency to it. Every single run would be bashing your fucking paddy wagon against a fucking dirt pile again and again and again and again and again and again and again until like 80 minutes into the fucking stream, it finally works once. But you don't even save the 10 seconds. You save like fucking 6. God fucking Jesus Christ. Again, words can't do it justice. It is one of the worst tricks to ever touch RTA. And dude, especially because it's so early in the run that you feel like you have to do it. If it was in like Knucklehead, I just wouldn't have done it except for like dead runs. But this was too early to ignore. In no pulse storage to do it twice, but that still really aids. It got me to do a sandwich driving early routes, where I do sandwich driving like several minutes earlier. Sandwich driving 1 or 2. However, even Bulldozer has been replaced, let alone fence setup, with this current setup. This is just known as fast sandwich out of bounds because there's just so many methods. Like, what do you even call it anymore? This one is easier than fence, but quite a bit harder than Bulldozer. So you could say why is it here, but it's special mention because it actually is a current strat. Again, sandwich out of bounds makes sandwich driving go from completely free, never ever resetting pretty much, except for like 1 in like 100 fucking attempts with something where you bonk too much or whatever. You know, things that never really actually happen in like an actual run, you know what I mean? This is different. Like, this is a hyper feel-based trick, and there's another reason why it's here. So this saves about, if done perfectly, like 4.5, maybe a tiny bit more than Bulldozer. So instead of getting the checkpoint now, you just you nitro on this immediately. Lose a bit of speed, but not too much. Land out of bounds. Nitro across. Turn your ass around. Nitro. And then Bob's your uncle. Now, why is that the worst fucking thing ever? Well, I'll tell you why it's the worst fucking thing ever. Also, if you're wondering why I'm complaining and bitching a lot, I'm just bringing the energy, and also because, I went to the dentist, and I need a filling, so I'm pissed off. I gotta go in 15 days. It just feels unfair, because, like, my parents, like, they drink beer, they fucking, you know, have, carbonated drinks way more than I do, you know. Yeah, I have the occasional Mountain Dew or whatever, but, like, I have slowed down in the past couple months, and I don't have fast food, which would also mean a drink with it. Like, I don't have it as a, you know, it just feels like a fucking kick in the balls. It just feels unfair. I know there's a lot worse things happening to people, but yeah, like, you know. Anyway, I'm just bringing the energy here, some bitchin'. So, first of all, this is hard because you have very little time to, like, actually, like, process life and just, like, position yourself. It is so easy to get a wrong angle here. Then, you need enough height. Then, you need to lose enough height, but enough speed, but not too much. If you lose too little speed, you'll either not make it or fucking bonk on some random invisible collision. But if you have too much speed, you'll get caught up against an invisible wall, or get thrown the other side inbounds, but you didn't get the checkpoint, so the run's dead. Then, with very little time to actually adjust, you nitro on this dirt pile. What's the problem with that? It's inconsistent as fuck. Well, it's incredibly feel-based. There are times where I swear to God I nitro around here, and you just get no height off of this. And if you get no height, you're stuck here and the run's dead. Well, you can recover it, but then it's not saving any time, so what's the point in doing the trick, therefore the run's dead. If you go too far to the left, the run's dead. If you go too far to the right, the run's dead. If you actually go in the right spot, sometimes the run is fucking dead. Then, how much speed you get and stuff, you might even get stuck in this wall, right? Then, with the speed that you do have, you need to fucking wipe your ass against an invisible wall here. Because the checkpoint for this area is here. You see the end of this door? It's about here. So you gotta scrape your ass against it, and I really do mean scrape. You really gotta push your patty ass against this. And then you gotta go forward, and then to make this as consistent as possible, you go pretty close to the dirt pile. Now, once again, too far left doesn't work. Too far right doesn't work. Even if you get roughly the middle area, but more so leaning left, it's possible to get stuck on a fucking invisible wall here. Wow, I love this trick. It's not fucking terrible at all. But if you do that perfectly, it saves like 4.5. For both sandwich drivings, that is about 9 seconds. The time save. In other categories, it could be as much as like 13. In a couple categories, you only do it once, but yeah. Also, in 100%, you can do this trick in conjunction with a really horrible strat. And instead of saving 4, that shit would save like 12, not like 13. It'd be crazy, but God, I don't want to do that. I would like so do sandwich driving early if I had to do that shit. So yeah, this shit is really bad. The reason why it's not as bad as Fence, though, is that even though it's hyper feel-based... Also, because there's like a million things that can go wrong, it's hard to play close to gold, by the way. Anyway, despite, like, this still isn't as bad as Fence setup, because there's some consistency to it. It depends on the day, but even on bad days, I get it like 40% of the time. Fence setup on good days, you get it 40% of the time. Quickly. Whereas with this... You know, even the bad attempts, I'll still only lose, like, at most, like, 3 seconds or something, which is still bad, but, like, even on the bad successful attempt, like, it's still better than, like, a lot of the Fence setup attempts, and it saves more time. As well, the reset point with this is, like, quicker than... Because with the other one, you gotta grab the checkpoint, turn around. You know, with this, it's not like that. You can reset faster, so it's better for your mental sanity. Also, with the ult setup, it was actually quite easy to accidentally miss the checkpoint. With this one, it's way easier. I've only ever missed it a couple times. But yeah, the trick is AIDS, but there's a lot of ways to recover it, and it's, you know, there's a lot worse tricks out there. Again, if this was in, like, Knucklehead, I'd be like, wow, I'm not doing this shit, but yeah. Oh yeah, but the actual reason, though, why I'm still, you know, putting it here... You know, Fence setup is relatively quick to practice. Bulldozer, not really. This trick has the same problem. You basically have to mod your Xbox to play this, to do this trick, to play this level this fast, because, it's nitro dependent, and you need enough nitros. And even if you make it across, then you have to drive all the way back, and then use up your remaining nitros. You only get like 2 or 3 goes per load. If you mod your Xbox, you can put a practice mod on your Xbox, and you can practice it incredibly efficiently. After like over 2,000 attempts, which by the way, Rubber Skip took me over 5,000 by the way to get it consistent. This one took me like 2,500 to get consistent enough to do it in runs. But by now, I've done it over 3,000 times, definitely, and it still only works like 60% of the time, but... You would have one attempt every, like, 2 minutes with this trick. The practice file gives you an attempt every, like... Assuming you fail it as quickly as possible, you literally get an attempt every, like, 5 to 6 seconds. You could theoretically learn it, but it's so hard, and it would take so long. It would take so long to learn that, like... You could, but it would be so much better to just learn other tricks, do runs, practice more with other stuff. Do ILs, I don't know, fucking something. It wouldn't be worth it. This just is not worth it unless you mod your Xbox. Whereas all the other tricks we've looked at so far are still fine to practice without the modded Xbox. Except for Bulldozer, but Bulldozer's like a lot easier than Fence, even if it still sucks a little bit. This one's a bit of a novelty. It's exclusive to 100% on all tokens. It's basically, it's way worse than it looks. Which is why I'm putting it this high. I know the gameplay looks bad, but yeah, look at the, so normally, you just enter the level. Normally the pads. However, here, you, get a bash boost. Grab the warp, and then, walk back. Then, yeah, you have to grab extra health, but that barely loses anything. And then, you lose a bit of time to menuing, but it still saves time. And then it basically allows you to two-frame the Sponge token, which you normally couldn't do. So it saves, like, 4 and a bit, like, a little over 4. So why is this so bad? Okay, first of all, it's very late in a run, but second, the Miv, like, almost always hits you here, it's so fucking annoying, and then that causes, like, big problems. But yeah, the Miv loves to hit you, it's so annoying. Like, he could have easily destroyed me there. And on the way back as well. The Miv loves to shoot the conveyor belt, like, as you walk across it. And the other reason, two-framing the Sponge token is, like, the actual worst thing on planet Earth. Like, it's so fucking bad. It's not shown here, but just before landing on the token, you're on Steam. Normally, the Sponge tokens are, like, the easiest ones to two-frame without buffers. But, like... Because you don't buffer the Sponge ones, the levels don't lag enough. But 2 frames are risky, because if it's the second frame, you don't know if you got it until after you went for it, so it's super risky. But even then, it's just because, basically, you go on, like, these, like, Steam things, and then you land, like, on top of the token. That's the problem. That's why it's so ridiculously hard. I missed it, like, a dozen times in a row before, and when I finally got it, because the Miv fucked me, I like, broke even or barely saved time. It's not worth it. You basically always lose time. And yeah, you could go for the 2-frame, but not only would you still miss it, like, half the time, that's extremely risky. And it's for only 4 seconds, like, it's so bad. So yeah, that's basically what it comes down to. Again, it's hard to do a justice on how bad it is, but it's so much worse than it looks. God, I never want to do it again. It was so bad. This is actually taken, this is the first trick where, like, nobody's ever gonna do it RTA, but not, it's just, this saves a chunk. It saves, like, 9 seconds or something. In Rockslide Time Challenge, we just don't bother with Skydive because you gotta do 1 frames. This is from Latte's 308 Rockslide Time Challenge World Record. So you get a 1 frame. Also, the other reason why 1 frames are so hard in the sliding levels, you get, like, a horrible visual cue. Like, it's just, like, it's just bad. And then you have to, like, build up speed in, like, a really weird way and get flung here. It's way harder than it looks. And it saves a good chunk, but the reason why it's not here... First of all, you know, it's only going to be done in Hundo and all tokens, and they're, you know, even combined, it's only going to save, like, 20. And, like, that's still good, but, like... You know, it's not enough to justify doing this, but you could argue, like, why is it here then? Why is it this low if we're not going to do it? It's hard to describe how I feel with it, but I feel like... Again, because of frame rate inconsistencies and just, like, how late it is in a run and just, like, how there's other time saves, you know, there's no urge to do this. You know what I mean? I just don't... I don't know, there's just not enough concern to do it, but... There are easier tricks that we'll be looking at, but they're harder in the sense that people are actually doing them. So that's why I place this here, because it's just like a 1 frame and a hard jump. Even if nobody's doing it. Is this the beginning? Yeah, I think this is the beginning of, like, theory stuff. Roughly. Now we're getting into the territory of, like, either theory stuff that would never actually be done because it doesn't save time, or it's not saving enough, or it's just, like, naturally inconsistent, or whatever. You know, we're beginning to get to that point. Or it's been obsoleted, but it was really hard, you know, things like that. So... This is exclusive to categories that grab the SCDA Spongeball Warp early. So categories that don't do guitar challenge, basically. Except for, like, ETU. Well, ETU doesn't do the guitar challenge either, but yeah, ETU doesn't, like, this time set doesn't apply to ETU. It applies to, like, early powers, no pause storage, early powers, all extras as well. EPA and AE. And in a theory, no major glitches route. So, the idea... So, look at the left side gameplay. This is what we do normally. We grab a checkpoint, and then we throw the melon, and then we jump on it, get here, and then we basically cartwheel to the warp for Spongeball. The warp is all the way over here for some stupid reason. And then we just drown and respawn. However, now look at the right side gameplay. The idea is to have these spinners. So you position yourself, and then you have the spinners. I don't even think that would have worked, by the way, but we'll get to that later. I think that just barely didn't work. But yeah, the spinners hit you, and then you can just barely grab the warp, and it saves, like... How much does it save? It's like 1.5 seconds, right? Yeah, it's 1.5 seconds. So, out the gate, this has RNG, so it's automatically invalid. It is possible, rare, however, actually semi-common in early powers, all extras, but even for no pause storage, like, this is okay. You'll usually get fine enough RNG, but these spinners do have some RNG. So you can save or lose more time to somebody else, you know, on average. Worst case scenario, it can kind of, like, break even or barely save anything. Well, that's not the worst case scenario. The worst case scenario is that the spinner's angle is so bad. This is rare, but he can approach you from this direction rather than this direction. And in that case, it's physically impossible to make the trick, and you just don't know. You don't know until you go for it, so that's the problem. You have to dedicate yourself to it. And even if it all works out, it's still hard, right? You need to position yourself well, and then you need to have really good dynamic jumping and get like a good fucking angle. You need to do all of that just to barely get enough distance. It's pretty bad. It's horrible. Like, even if there was no RNG and, like, the setup was, like, not hard, even just this would be hard. This hasn't been proven, but I think this is only possible with a buffer. I really do. Buffers give you slightly more height, which means slightly more distance. Maybe in a task, but even that, I'm doubtful. But yeah, I don't even think this example made it. I think it was just barely off. And that's another thing. You don't know until at least 3 meter. And if you missed a 3 meter 2 frame, you won't even know if you got it until after Dennis. And that, I mean, the run's dead anyway, but at least for a no reset, you'd want to know, you know what I mean? For closure, mental closure. But yeah, like, barely saves anything. You have to dedicate yourself to it. You can't even do it for every category. It's actually, yeah, no, it's actually hard to practice. Because if you approach it from the area where you respawn, the spinner RNG is even more random, which makes it even harder. We pseudo-manip spinners, normally, because after SCDA out of bounds, the spinners have already spawned in. So you cartwheel past them, and you manip them a little bit to come close to you. But then, for a few seconds, they still have free reign to go wherever they want. But you know, it's way more consistent, even then, compared to... Yeah, it's even, like... So practicing it, you won't even get proper results out of it. So you'd have to do SCDA out of bounds every single time, and then it's slow to practice. Maybe you could make a practice mod, but then you don't have buffers because hard drive removes lag. And if you try to burn a disk, we've already tried burn disk movie. Loads are really slow, the menus are really slow, which means that the buffers will be inconsistent, and yeah. This is, like, literally never being done, basically. But if you did do it, then for categories like NMG and all tokens and stuff, you know, then grabbing the warp early would only lose a tiny bit to do early, but it's still, like, you know, that's only for a very niche thing. I'll get into that later. I think I'll take a break soon, but it won't matter for you guys, it'll just be for me. Because I'll pause the recording. Now, here's another one. This trick that I'm about to show is extremely hard, but it's only this low because it's not in the run anymore, because we found a faster and way better alternative. Now, that alternative still kind of sucks in its own ways. I lost world record to the trick literally yesterday. Like 20 hours ago or something, but yeah. This trick is really bad. So basically what you would do, you would lag clip through here. Okay, I have to relive for some reason. You lag clip through. So you do like 9 wall jumps, and you just do guitar glide stuff over here. So far it's not hard. And then you just navigate your way out of bounds, bash this, jump around. If you react poorly, you can drown in the lava, but that only happened to me like once. Then you do an RNA clip, but it's not that bad. This is the bad part. You see how that was spliced? Yeah, it's spliced for a fucking reason. So, basically, there is a trick here called Guitar Glide Clip. However, what we've done is lag under the map so that we avoid a trigger that spawns a puzzle. We skip a cutscene. But the problem with skipping the cutscene is that it skips a conveyor belt. And that conveyor belt is what made the trick easy. So, basically, right? Now watch the right side gameplay. You see how I double jump to the wall jumps? If you spin during any of this, and then do a guitar glide clip, you'll lose control, and you'll fly off into the moon, basically, and the run's dead. So you have to do a double jump here. And it's really, 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 really hard. After a lot of grinding, I was getting it like a 5th of the time. It's really hard. But it saves so... And it was really late in a run. Didn't apply to all categories. Only like early powers and no pull storage. Like, fuck me, dude. It's so bad. But yeah, it saved like 12 seconds. However, its mental impact was not felt too much, because after only about 2 days or a day, it got replaced with, again, a much better setup. In fact, you know that setup I was complaining about? You can make it a lot more consistent and have it still save about as much as this trick, or maybe slightly less. And you can make it, like, not free, but way easier. But even the risky method, that is still a couple seconds faster than this one. But I'm not showing it because it's not hard enough to justify it. Especially when it saves so much time. Like, as far as look at the left side gameplay. As far as I'm concerned, you should never learn this. It's like only a tiny bit harder to do the other one, and over this strat, it saves like 14, like the new one, like 14, 15. Which, by the way, this trick also lets you do a faster ball storage, which saves an additional 10 seconds, and yeah. Anyway, now here's another one. This one is, like, kinda RTA viable on its own, in theory, but it's pretty fucking terrible for its... Obviously, you can see it's in Neptune, so you can imagine, you know, doing something that late in a run is kind of ridiculous. This does apply to every single Neptune in the run in the game, though. Every category. So there's that. So, basically, the idea is to walk right up to Neptune. Like, walk literally as close as you basically possibly can. Probably only give or take, like, a unit. And then you basically just spam R to, like, using detonate guitar as soon as possible. Because as it currently stands, you have to, like, let guitar move forward for a little bit before hitting Neptune. And basically... Oh, it's being weird. So, you can do this, I think it's realistically, like, 3 times. For 2 of the 3 times, you can also do another thing. It's hard to explain, but it saves an additional frame, and after doing this, it's free, so you might as well do it. So, I think after those 3 times, it saves 0.9, but it's not viable because, when I say you have to stand as close to Neptune as possible, I really do mean it. If you stand any further away, guitar will not detonate, and then you just lost a bunch of time. And if you walk further forward, Neptune will knock you back and restart his attacking phase, making you lose like 20 seconds. Or more. It's probably like low 20s. So yeah, actual suffering. So it's really hard, really fucking precise, and we can't have a practice mod for it because the bosses are hard-coded as fuck. Hard-coded basically means, like, encrypted, kind of. So unless the game gets decompiled or something, that there's just, you know, like, a mod for this can't exist. Which means you have to sit through an entire attacking phase before you even get a fucking opportunity. If it was just once and it saved a second, okay, you know, I might have tried grinding it, but 3 times for 0.9? No. There is also another version of this trick, by the way, that's easier, but you do it 4 times for, I think, like a second or 1.1 seconds of time save. But it's hard to say, because you have to do that 1 extra time, so it's hard to say which one's, like, actually hard, and, again, you have to wait through the entire attacking phase still. It is a little better to practice, though, but it still is. It's probably only really cheap percent viable. If somebody put their life into it, then yeah, they could get it consistent, but then again, like, a billion other tricks to get consistent at that point. Should this really be here? Yeah, I guess it should. This feels a little dirty to put it early, but that's because a lot of what we're gonna look at after this is just, like, kind of extreme. This is, like, the ending of, like, reasonability to any reasonability, really. Like, this is, like, the last one that has really any reasonability to it, I feel like, realistically. Discord has an update. I'll look at that later. By the way, fuck Discord's username changing thing. I had the name Purple. People are like, just put an underscore or a period at the end of the name. Wow, wow. It's almost like I tried that and I can't because the name is literally Purple. Oh, we could do Purple SRC or Purple RTA. No, because you can't do uppercase letters because Discord's fucking bad. It's objectively bad in every way, pretty much. And even the ways it's not, it's basically just as good, or it's very slightly subjective. Anyway, So this is Spew Boost, and the trick is very hard. Applies to, like, any category, really, that does tunnel, without, like, lag clips or whatever. This saves 5 seconds, and is horrifically inconsistent, or should I say was. It's still quite inconsistent, but... Again, we're gonna get to some pretty ridiculous stuff. And there are good points to this trick, where where it's not that bad. Obviously, the first one being that it only, in quotes, only saves 5, so it's not that bad to miss it. That's less than rubber dub 1 frames. You know, if you got rubber dub 1 frames and miss this, it's kind of like, who cares at that point? If you miss both, then that's a bit different, but, you know, like... You never ever go into a run expecting to get this, but it has seen a massive consistency bump in the past couple days, even though it's still really bad. Otherwise, I would have placed it, like, around fucking here, if you can see my screen, like, around here. Because it really was that bad before, but I'll just be talking about this one, I guess. Actually, I'll be right back. I'm very hot. Alright, it was just a couple seconds for you, but it was a while for me. So, as I was saying earlier, this trick got a lot better, but it's still horrible. So, the strat, basically, we don't need these manlies, but, like, you know. You jump sort of on the end-ish of this eel, and then you have, like, good jump spacing and stuff. It nearly guarantees that the spewer, like, throws the ball up high for you to bash off of. And then the second part of the trick is that you stand behind this, you quickly bash, and then that was a bad angle, but, yeah. Now, it's way better than before. It's like 2 or 3 times more consistent, and yet it's still absolutely horrible. First of all, we now have the problem of getting too much height pretty often. And then you could say, like, oh, well, just have slightly imperfect jump spacing. That's not consistent. That'll never be consistent. And it also still partially depends on, like, how far off you know, Latte could have jumped, like, 2 frames earlier, and it might have given him slightly different jump height. You know, or he could have jumped quite a bit earlier. You know, like, there's still, like, a range. You'll never jump off at the exact same time every single time, probably. And even if you could, like, again, it's just, like, even if it all goes to plan, it is still a very precise trick. Your visual cue is like a dot on the pressure plate. It fucking sucks. And there's so much variance. I seriously believe, at least with current knowledge, it'll never, ever be 100% consistent. In a way, it's sort of gotten a tiny bit worse, even though it is like 2 to 3 times more consistent. Now, you get into the reason why it wasn't the end of the world before was because you could almost always tell that you weren't going to get enough height, so you could just not do it. And then you'd lose nothing compared to getting it, if the trick, like, then it's the equivalent of if the trick never existed in the first place. This is different now. Because you just can't really tell until you go for it, you now have way more runs where you actually go for it and miss it. And that loses time. So now, even though the consistency of the actual trick has gone up a lot, not only is it still low, it's still like 25% of the time or something. So not only is it still low, but most of, like, the remaining 75%, of that 75%, like, 60% of that is you going for it and not having enough height, and then you just lose, like, 2.5 seconds or something. And, you still get the very rare instance of too little height, and that's hard to tell, like, with, like, the setup. So, yeah, in the average run, you actually lose more time than before, it's just that you'll get it more often, so it's like a gamble. But the reason why it's this low is because, I think if you grind it for a super long time, it could be, you know, more applicable. But also because, for the most part, you can mostly ignore it. 5 seconds isn't that much, really. You don't have to get both parts of the trick. You could just, to get the second part, you have to get the first part, and the second part is way easier than the first part, infinitely easier, and actually. But if you get a bad angle or whatever, you might not be able to do the second one, but If it, like, the actual just focusing on the second bash boost, it's very easy and fully consistent. But that is responsible for, like, half the time save, and if this throws you off, then you might not be able to do it, but still. So even if you only get one, the first part of it, you can still save time. Again, it doesn't save enough to be, like, the end of the world, and you can actually have, like, a practice mod of it, just to practice, like, 15 seconds faster or something. I might give it another go, a log. I already tried before, but I might do it again now that this has been found. But yeah, it's really AIDS, but it's not that, like, if it saved, like, 15, it'd be a different story. Alright, I think now we're getting to theory stuff. Yeah, now we're in the category of theory stuff, and then the final category is stuff that's just, like, impossible. Or most likely is, at least, and will just never actually be done in runs, but for now. So, this is a little hard to explain, but no major glitches and all tokens have and all world tokens have a route called BBBH backwards, where you do, like, you get 5 tokens from BBBH, but 4 of them come from late game, so you just do stuff in late game, and it saves, like, 45 seconds. Right? However, it is possible to do it in mid-game, and it loses a lot, but compared to BBBH forwards, it can still save time. So here's how it would work. Keep in mind as well, so the only category this actually theoretically applies to is no major glitches. And this doesn't even save as much time as it would look, because it'll give, basically NMG has massive manliness point problems in, I don't know why I did that, in Now That We're Men and SCDA, and you could use this route to patch it up in SCDA, but not Now That We're Men, and that creates problems. And compared to doing some other route, it's basically a world record exclusive route that brings BBBH forwards back in. Compared to that route, like, that route lets you do a faster 3 meter. I probably won't actually do it, but it saves like 3 seconds. You won't even have the chance to do it here. You know what you'll have to do here, right? To get enough to upgrade throw, you have to 2-frame the 3 meter token. Literally, you have to 2-frame the 3 meter token. And then you'll have to warp back to BBBH. So if you miss that 2-frame as well, then you still need to do the load. You're losing like 2.5, 3 seconds. But that is not at all the worst of it. Not at all. So you have to warp back to BBBH, and then you know what you gotta fucking do? You don't need to look at the right side gameplay, but you know what you gotta do? You gotta do some BBBH slide jumps. Oh, well, you do that in BBBH anyway. Ah, yeah, well, I mean, that's very true. So I don't even know what I'm complaining about, Rio. It's really easy, you know, just pretty standard stuff. Oh, why did you go past the trigger? Hey, Pipple, why did you go past the trigger? Pipple, what are you doing, Pipple? What the fuck are you doing, bro? What are you doing? Yep, you have to climb up the literal entire slide with all the twists and turns, and keep in mind, this will be pretty late in a run as well compared to BBBH, so you gotta do, like, you know, you gotta get, like, 1/5 of the way up the slide anyway in BBBH 1, and then you gotta come back and do this shit later. And it is so hard to keep a rhythm, it's so goddamn difficult. This is spliced, I mean, you can see here, like, in a second, it's fucking spliced. Because it took a while, and that's the best I could do. It's really hard to get all the jumps. And then it turns into, and then this is easy. Also, you're on an inconsistent throwing fruit cycle because the cycle is dependent on the beginning of the level. But I just had to assume that it was, yeah, I basically just had to assume that, it was gonna be, like, the regular cycle. And we did find a faster cycle here, but then there's, like, a technicality with, like, the way that I did the other gameplay. So, it's still... So, as you can see, wait, 40? I thought it was 35. Did I not look at it properly? Am I not have? Wow, in that case, it really is just worthless. 35 seconds? Like, bro... I mean, 40... That... Okay, so it's only saving, like... 5 seconds over BBBH forwards. And because of manliness problems and 3 meter and 3 meter 2 frame, this would just not actually be, like, this would, like, never fuck you. Maybe in your golds, but, like, in RTA, you would, like, basically never actually fully save time with this unless you have, like, a guard run going. Even though you save, like, a second. And that's assuming that you get a good throwing fruit cycle, by the way. Which you very well might not. And then you have to do a version of Disco backwards. Because with regular BBBH backwards, you can do it a SpongeBob, and it's very, you know, it's quite easy and consistent. With Patrick, you gotta do a slower and RNG version. When I say RNG, it can only differ as much as a couple seconds, but still, that does matter. And it is harder, in my opinion, anyway, the movement. So yeah, the whole fucking... Yeah, it's terrible, basically. And I'm not even 100% positive you'd have enough to throw. Even after getting all the TNT and BBH, I'm not even positive that you have enough. But even if you did, it would never, like, actually save time. Now the men would get in the way. Like, after getting Weenie Stack full Now the men, you know, now it's, like, 3.5 seconds saved. And then if you miss a 3 meter 2 frame, then it's saving, like... fucking nothing. And then if we're gonna compare it to 3 meter invisible crate, then no, it's just not viable at that point, you know. So yeah, we'll probably never actually be seen. But it would be, like, theoretically possible to save time. It's just a bunch of 2-frame jumps and hoping you have a good cycle. That's like most of the you know. But no one's ever gonna do it unless there's a way to skip climbing up all the way up the slide or something. So yeah. Now we're getting into the theory stuff. Proper. Well, I mean, the other one was basically like that too. But yeah. This one is even more theory in the sense that it doesn't really even theoretically save time. So look at the left side. Well, I guess look at the right side gameplay. I mean, no, we're just gonna do tunnel normally, like, you know, tunnel. Yeah, I just realized that my game got a lag spike as well, so this saves even less than I thought it did. Yeah. Anyway, so look at the left side gameplay. So you basically, like, set up your position here. You bash. Hopefully you don't get hit by the spitter. You bash out of bounds. And then you gotta, like, land out of bounds, and it's extremely hard to do that fast. This is spliced together a lot. And then you gotta, like, get a hyper, I believe, if I remember correctly, because this was found in, like, 2020, I believe this is a hyper inconsistent ledge grab. And then you gotta, bowl an eel, walk all the way back, just to grab the bungee warp, or else this will actually save quite a bit. We need bungee. And then you gotta go forward again. And this isn't factoring as well that the spewer is already shooting you. I highly, 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 highly doubt that you would get, you would be on, because spewer boost activates from when you're about to jump off the eel normally, but now it's already going. I can't imagine you could actually get a spewer boost out of this. And how much does it save in total? Half a second, and when you get rid of that lag spike, it's more like 0.2 or something. And it's like mega spliced. And it removes manlies, so it'll never actually save time. The only category where you could skip these manlies, I think, like, all extras you probably could. But this saves, like, nothing, and it makes it so you most likely can't go for spewer boost, so, like, it actually doesn't really save anything. Actually... Yeah, so the category was most applicable is all extras, and it'll not actually be done there. It's kind of fucking sad when you think about it. If we had a way to, like, get the bungee warp early, then it might be worth it, but even then you'd have to grind manlies and SCDA, so it might not be worth it, but, you know, just example. So, that it would not only be insanely hard, and you would never, ever, ever, ever save time with it, but even if you could, Manleys would get in the way, so it would only save time in the segment itself, and it still doesn't really even do that. Next up is another massive theory route. I'm placing it very high because of how ridiculously hard a trick is in this. However, this route is not actually fast, so this will never need to be done unless we can find a way to like multiply damage or something that doesn't apply to the regular Frogfish route. So Frogfish RTA is just beating the first boss as fast as possible without cheats. You know, no cheese, obviously it's the same as always. Depression, same as in like no pole storage and other categories like that. Sandwich driving, obviously the same. 3k, you only get the end level token, but the first like half of it is still like the same. So it's just like a faster and easier version of 3k. Rub-a-dub's the same. BBBH is the same as in NMG and AT, where you just like do slide jumps and kill the enemies. Weenie is exactly the same, except you don't upgrade Slam. And then Frogfish, because you have Cartwheel and not Slam, like you just have to Cartwheel Frogfish a bunch. So Frogfish is quite a bit slower, and it is harder, but isn't like that much harder. The difficulty comes from how optimized it can be. The category for how short it is. The world record's 1449, and 3x is like theoretically possible. And I really do mean theoretically, like fucking hell. We'll get to it later, but there is a strat that you could do that nobody's doing. And that would bring my sum of best into the territory of it being possible with like a fucking insane perfect run. So I guess you don't really need to see the standards, but the idea, so you do Depression end level immediately, so you just skip the Depression tokens. This does mean you don't have to deal with the aids of Creek, but so the route is easier at the moment, although doing cone jump like this is honestly kind of hard. But, you know, it's not too bad. 3k, you don't have enough of Bash. So what you have to do is, like, do a bunch of buffers and stuff. And people can say what they want about buffers, but Bash, you literally hold Y within, like, a multi-second window. This, you do the inputs within, like, a quarter of a second window, and lag is not fully consistent. And you don't get quite as much highs from a distance as much of a bash boost. So yeah, we're gonna be doing a bunch of buffering stuff, so now 3k is quite a bit harder, but you know, not the end of the world. Then, we are going to replace Creek and Bounce with Steamed, and this is where it gets bad. So this is the same as before, but now you gotta do buffer. This one is fine. It's this one that's bad. Okay, this has only been seen once, and I couldn't do it. That's why it's spliced in. I could not do it. I've never gone in my life. It needs to be so fucking perfect, and then and then it needs to be even. I kind of spliced it poorly, but yeah, like it needs to be so perfect. You only just barely make it, like, it needs to be, like, fucking TAS. And you just barely get enough. Like, I really do mean fucking barely. Like, ugh. The only reason I'm showing this is literally because of that. It's one of the... Considering I've never gone it, if I grinded it a bunch, maybe, but, like, even then... It's just one of those tricks where you can't imagine it getting it more than, like, a third of the time at best, you know? One of those really hard ones. But the fact that it's, like, in the middle of the run as well would just make us... And you'll get one fucking chance, because you'd have 2 health, and then after getting damage, you get 1 health. It's just run insta-dead, you know? I guess I could show the rest of this, though. So you just die, and then do Steamed... not Steamed, you do Bungee. Also, the Banjo guy is pretty likely to get in your way. So yeah, you do Bungee, and then you warp back to the beginning and get Bash. That actually, you do actually need Bash, because, that's the only way to destroy the buttons at the end of 3k, and not to destroy them, to hit them. Also, this comparison's not accurate, because I accidentally took out the, Steamed load. That was a complete accident. But the route's not fast anyway. So yeah, now you have to do BBBH without cartwheeling, but it's not that bad. You just... Yeah, so you upgrade spin instead of thingy. But it's like, oh, we're already in Frogfish. Like, this is based, but it's not based. I got a bad Frogfish in this comparison, so I guess you can negate a lot of the 3k load. But it doesn't even matter, because it just, like, it loses, like, basically, upgraded Cartwheel does twice as much damage to Frogfish as upgraded Spin. Otherwise, this would save, like, 15 seconds or something, but it just doesn't save time. I dropped a paperclip. I don't know where it went. I never know where these paperclips come from, and then I always drop them and then never see them again. But yeah, as you can see, you know, had a lead for a while, but now just quickly, you know... Okay, it's 9 seconds, but then when you factor the load, but also the bad frog, so it loses like 13 seconds. It'll never actually be done, unless we can find a way to multiply damage that doesn't apply to Cartwheel or something. Or just some way to, like, insta-kill Frogfish or something. Like well, there's no debug trigger, but just something else. And if that happens, then Jesus Christ, I think the route is only possible on OG. So, yeah. Now we get to... this is possible and saves a lot. It's ranked higher than the other one because it actually saves time. This is exclusive to early powers, I believe. Oh, that is my task manager. Like a boss. So, you enter Naloman Area 2, and look at the right side gameplay. And then you have to do the worst thing ever. You have to manip this fucking Fogger, right? Which is really, really hard and precise, and you gotta jump and reposition him, and then jump into his burp, slide off of it, and just barely make it to the trampoline. If that doesn't look bad to you, I really don't know what to tell you. If that does look bad to you, then... yeah, congrats, you get it. This is so fucking bad. But the issue with it is that it saves like 15 seconds. And like, it's only in one category. And it saves a lot. But you only get one chance. It's just like all the worst traits. The only thing is that it doesn't take an eternity to get to. I mean, actually, it's still kind of cancerous to practice, actually. Setting it up. You can't warp to this area, exactly. You have to, like... warp to Bungie and then finish up Area 1 and then your checkpoint's set. Or you need to, like, save the game and then load into, this area. But that's not that bad. But yeah, this shit is is really bad. I don't know if anybody will ever do it in a run. It's really bad. But this combined with, like, some other strats. I feel like 38... might barely be possible in early powers. World record's 3940, but it's got some mistakes. And doesn't have Sponge Glide. But then again, if you do Sponge Glide, you have to get the plank stack, and then Sponge Glide's not actually saving that much, but, you know. Anyway, yeah, no, this shit's really bad, and I don't know if it'll ever be done, but I'm leaning more towards it now. But I guess we have to wait and see. That's, like, the worst one here that's, like, quote-unquote RTA viable. Either that or this one, but this one having any RTA viability is a bit questionable. So this is for Weenie, and it's only for Weenies that don't have the extras, and it saves more in level in categories where you don't need to load from in Weenie to a different location. So if it's a category that does BBBH backwards, then you have to do backtracking after getting the final key in Weenie, so you gotta use a load. However, here, that would lose 2 seconds and would make the trick even less viable than it already isn't. So, yeah. Cold water, really. I don't like water, but, like, it's kind of nice and, like, when it's fucking hot. Anyway... So this Weenie route, you really have to dedicate yourself to it, too. That's another reason why it's a pain in the ass. You can have a practice mod for this, so there's that, but... in fact, one exists. But yeah, so... what you do, right? So normally we go to the left path, but here you want to go to the right path because you get a nitro from it, and you really, really want the nitro. Trust me, you want that fucking nitro. It'll save time. So you have to dedicate yourself to it early. If you grab the nitro and then pussy out, which you have the option to do, but, like, if you do that, then you're losing a few seconds. Like 3 seconds, 2.5 seconds. And then you gotta do such a horrible trick. You gotta turn nitro, and then you grab the key while bouncing out of bounds, and then you can, like, land out of bounds. That was, like, a pretty fucking fast out of bounds as well. And then you just drive back. It takes a while. Then you do another trick called boat bounce, and this is what you need a nitro for. So after the first nitro, I mean, you'll see how slow... Look at this. Look how slow you go. That's why we need the nitro. And then you turn... You can't turn too much or too little. It's very feel-based. You gotta turn right amount. And then you get a bounce. And then at this point, you can either tap reverse or just hold it. And then hopefully you bounce off of this in a way that'll, like, bounce you into the key and back down here. And then you go the left path, and then you just start going this way. And then you quickly kill yourself and respawn. And if you do all that, then you save, like, 6 seconds. So, a few things with this. Well, you know, it's fastest and most viable in like, well, now NMG, but also no port storage and, like, early powers and frogfish, but not all categories, so it's already a pain in the ass. A little late into the run, not super late, but a little late, you know. The thing is, right, no port storage, run's pretty stressful, but then when it comes to, like, between, like, 3k2, you do, like, 3k2, weenie, frogfish, rock slide. That's, you know, stuff can go wrong, but it's probably the most chill, like, it's probably the most chill collection of segments in the run. And, like, this in between it all, oh god, dude, that'd just be bad. And, yeah. That's the first thing. The second thing is that if you bounce, if you land, like, much further up this way, it's faster to go the opposite direction, basically, to go, to do, the trick. In this case, it would save, like, a second, but honestly, driving back this way is really hard, so it's probably not worth it. Third, you can use the other side of the boat here, but it loses half a second, and because it hasn't been tested extensively, it's hard to say which one's actually more consistent. So just, you know, just doing the left side one for now. But yeah, now we're getting into the really, really horrible toxic sides of it. In fact, we're first going to talk about boat bounce because it's by far the, like, the, of the two tricks, it's like the by far the least cancerous, and it's still horrible. So, again, it's incredibly feel-based. So what can happen is that you don't get enough of a bounce, and if this happens, run's instantly dead. You just lost over a minute. If it does work, you nearly never get a bounce this good. What almost always happens is that, like, you land around here, or, like, thrown around this way, and then you're kind of wiggling around trying to, like, because the hitbox for this key is bizarre. So you're trying to wiggle around, slow down, try to get it, and then when you grab it, then you slow down even more, get off this platform, and then drive forward. So if you get an average boat bounce, the time save is not 6 seconds. It's more like fucking, like, even being a little generous, like 3.5. Okay, well, you know, I mean, still save a little bit of time, and you could save more, you know, okay. So the thing is with this, again, I said it's very feel-based. It hasn't been tested on... We don't know if it's actually consistent. I'm just assuming that it's incredibly feel-based with how far you turn. It could even be based on, like, how much you turn within a certain amount of time, or it might just be completely random. I would like to think that it's consistent, but I don't actually know. And this wasn't perfect, but it was, like, pretty good. So, yeah. So, if it was just this, you know, on average saving 3.5 seconds, pretty feel-based, I think I would have done it by now. I think I would have. I think I would have grinded it. I think I would have found it consistent enough. I think I would have had some times where I miss it, and I'm just like, dude, why do I do this trick? It's AIDS. But I think overall, I probably could have gotten it consistent by now. The actual out of bounds is the horrible, horrible aspect of this trick. And words really can't do it justice. This has to be the worst RTA viable, in quotes, trick fucking in the game. Except for maybe the BBBH full backwards mid-game one. But only because that one has a lot more to it. This is more concentrated difficulty. And has far less leniency. This is hard. You have to, like, nitro while turning. And again, words just can't do it justice, as I could explain to you for 50 minutes why it's so goddamn hard. But you probably don't care anyway, bro. Or at least, like, you probably kind of at least can comprehend why it'd be hard. But yeah, you nitro, you have to, okay, grabbing this key is really hard. Even when you do make it out of bounds, like, 35-40% of the time, you don't even get the key. You can just get it after the fact, but then you lose, like, 3 to 4 seconds, and then combined with boat bounce, then you're not fucking saving anything, so there's no point in doing it. And of course you could just get this perfectly and then boat bounce fucking fails, but... This is just known as, like, weenie out of bounds, by the way. So you got... This is really hard. The bounce off of this, like, just actually getting out of bounds, just getting out of bounds. Not fast, getting out of bounds with the key, without the key even, is really, 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 really hard. And we can't even do a normalized thing. We can't even nitro from the left side, because again, we really need that one nitro, or else this is saving like nothing. Now, the next absolutely abysmal aspect of this, where you land out of bounds is hyper inconsistent. Right? It is possible to get thrown so far to the left that you land back in bounds. It is possible to get thrown in such a horrible way that you land, like, by these rocks, and then you're saving, like, almost nothing. Like, this bounce was really... It wasn't perfect, but it was really good. It's possible to get even more airtime, and then just lose time from that. Like, I'm just gonna keep saying it, but it's true. Words can't do it justice. I did a log of it, a few hundred attempts. And I think my best was like a dozen times out of 100, not even factoring boat bounce, just enough to where I feel like it could theoretically save some amount of time. Just this. There were a couple ones that only saved like half a second. But I was like, all right, well, I guess that would technically save time, so it counts. So if we're actually talking about, like, you know, actually saving a decent amount with it, it was more like 8 or 9 out of fucking 100. And if I grinded it every day by now, maybe it'd be like 15-20%, but what's the point with boat bounce in the way? If it was just this and you didn't need the key, that'd be different, but like, why would I want to grind this? Especially when it doesn't apply to every category, and it's so all or nothing. It's fucking horrible. I mean, you can just miss it, land back in bounds, and then carry on with your life, but then you just lost several seconds. Well, actually, hold on, let me think. Yeah, no, you just lost, like, even, like, a good miss, you still lose, like, 5 seconds. The worst misses, you could lose, like, 8 or 9. And then at that point, you know, that's a lot of time loss. At that point, I'd much rather go for fucking Spew Boost. Also, with Spew Boost, it's possible to get too little heights and you just drown and shit like that, and not get enough distance and drown. But, you know. So, yeah, hopefully I've done it justice. We need to find a faster and/or... Well, if there's a slower method that's, like, easier, it probably won't be done unless it's, like, fucking really easy. And still, consistently saves maybe, like, 2+ seconds or something. Otherwise, we need to find a faster method if it's going to be this difficulty, or an easier method that saves the same amount. I do think... I mean, there is, like, a task strat to get out of bounds. I probably should have shown it, actually. I guess I'll go looking for it while I talk. This just, like, the reason why the out of bounds doesn't save that much is because you're doing such a detour. Like, it's crazy. Okay, I got the link copied, so I guess I'll show it off in a bit, but... Yeah, no, this is just really, really bad. Will I ever do it in runs? Literally ever. I think I will. But by that, I think it'll just be Frogfish. I think, like, I'll be on PB pace going into Frogfish. You know, then my BBBH is bad enough to where it's like, alright, like, you know, it would be way too unrealistic to PB now. I just have to go for Weenie Out of Bounds. Like, then, you know, if you get an average Weenie Out of Bounds and an average boat bounce, you'll save like 1.5 seconds. That might be, and you could get better. That might be enough to clutch it out. You know, Frogfish is a pretty low stakes run, so I could see it being a thing there for dead runs. But outside of that, without some drastic change, because again, even if the Weenie Out of Bounds were 100% consistent, the boat bounce would still be problematic, and how fast you get out of bounds in the first place would be problematic. So we need some drastic transformation. I do think there's something out there. And technically there is. Allow me to pause the recording for a second. Okay. So this is a task version of the Out of Bounds. It has never been timed because this was found a while ago before boat bounce, I think, so it wasn't done in conjunction with anything. The idea with this was to get to the weenie finish line, but as it turns out, the trigger isn't there until after you've gone through every checkpoint. Well, until you've collected all the keys, but then to get the ramp key, you need the checkpoint, and, you know. But this would like definitely save time over the other one. So already, all right, you lose a little bit of time because you're not immediately booking it. But basically, so you nitro up here. This is a little inconsistent, but not the end of the world. Then this is where it stops becoming RTA viable. Look at this shit. Like, did you fucking see that? Like, you're gonna ricochet off that, and then bounce all the way back here, then react to it well, drive around, like, the edges, which is, you know, really risky, drop down here, right? Then you have to... go up this way, nitro. If you could grab the key during that, this would be a lot faster, but... Well, not a lot faster, but yeah. Anyway, land out of bounds, and then you do a bit of navigating, you get to the boat. I think this would be... I don't actually know for sure, but I think it'd be like 5 to 8 seconds faster, maybe. The issue is that we have no more nitros, and that's a big problem in of itself. After the beginning of Weenie, you have 2 nitros, and then after you grab the right side tunnel one, you have 3, and then after you grab this one, you have 4. So you'd have 4 here, not 3, like is shown. So you'd have 1 nitro for the boat, and then I don't actually know if it saved time at that point. So it might not actually even save time now that I think about it, but maybe in theory, maybe in some tasks. I would love to see somebody task a Weenie Out of Bounds, just to see, you know, what's fastest. But yeah, that's basically it, you know. This also only applies to Weenie 1, I should mention that. Which is why it's, you know, not higher. So yeah, 6 seconds of time save, and even if you did get the tricks, you'd save more like 2, and you'll never actually fucking get it anyway. And by some miracle, if you do get it, Bow Bounce might have something to say about it. And this is clearly not, like, RTA viable, anyway, this one. We did have a task to find Rubber Dub Skin. Maybe I could ask them if they want to task, like, Weenie Out of Bounds, but that might, I don't know. We already asked them to see if they could find a Weenie Out of Bounds method, and they never found one, but maybe if they saw the current version, maybe they would have an idea, I don't know. Alright, we're finally getting to the home stretch. Now we're getting to strats that... There are 3 left. I should probably close this. There's 3 left, and 2 of them are physically impossible on NTSC Xbox. 3 of them, actually. No, 4 of them are physically impossible. We're pretty... Well, one of them is barely possible, actually, so 2, the physically impossible 2, that'll never actually be done. This is on PAL GameCube, which has, like, you get, like, a little... Paddy wagon speeds differ depending on the version, yada yada yada. The slower the paddy wagon is, the more height it gets off ramps and stuff. PAL GameCube has slightly more height than NTSC Xbox. Okay, moving on. So, you just nitro off this, bounce up, then you navigate around, you know, you just do some shit, and then you land here. This is, as far as we're aware, physically impossible on this. It's extremely hard. Maybe a practice file here to just in case, but like making a practice file for something that might not exist is fucking stupid. And even if it is just barely possible, this is clearly never going to be actually like done RTA. But yeah, it saves like 4 or 5 seconds, I forget. It's like 5, I think. And you can do that in every sandwich driving except ring. So in no port store to save 10. NMG and other categories, it save more. Well, if there's an extra involved, actually, you can't do it. So in all extras, you'd only be able to do it once. In Hundo, you'd only be able to do it twice. Because there's a park extra, but yeah. The categories that would save the most of this are NMG and AT. Would save like 15. And the second thing is another method of sandwich out of bounds. I believe this was actually the first one found, but it's not. It's been done on OG once, but yeah, nitro on this, and you barely go over an invisible wall. And I really do mean barely, by the way. He only went over about like a couple units or something. The one example video of it being done on OG, they landed on top of the invisible wall. And to get it, you know, it's probably like a 1 in 100 or something after grinding. And that's if you slow down and set it up. And then at that point, it's like not really saving anything over fast sandwich out of bounds. But this one probably saves like a few, like 2 to 3 seconds over fast sandwich out of bounds, maybe. I'm not sure. It saves a nitro. Yeah. But yeah. You do, and then the rest of it's like the same sort of thing. Although obviously because there's an IL they nitro earlier here. Yeah, you got fucked there. But yeah, so that is never being done. But that again, you can do that in a bunch. You know, I would save like maybe like 3 more seconds. So like 9 in some categories, 3 in some, 6 in most. Actually, in Hundo, it saved the most. But, yeah. That's never actually been done. Now, Knucklehead. This isn't a task because it's never been done in one full, like, Knucklehead. There is a horrible strat here. I kind of rushing it a bit because, like, I've already gone over the stuff in the sliding, in the sliding and driving IL video, and because I'm hot and I've been recording for a while. So you avoid triggers, basically, and then nitro off of this. Bounce off and barely land out of bounds. Grab a warp. And then you turn around again. Nitro. And it's estimated that if you do it, like, perfectly, it saves, like... How much does it save? Like 5 seconds or something? It's basically like backwards sandwich out of bounds, but way harder. It's gotta be like a 1 in 30, 40, etc. to get fast. Like even after grinding, and that's not factoring as well that this level has like RNG elements, and it has a harder park out of bounds. But yeah, this is already physically impossible on NTSC OG, I have no doubt about that. And then there's basically park out of bounds, but even harder, because you're bouncing off a smaller rock. Watch this. And with this park out of bounds, because you're nitroing, it's easy for it to like give you a bad angle, throw you to the right and lose speed. It is an actual fucking nightmare. This one saves quite a bit. And it's never being done. I think it's, I forget how much this saves. It saves more than the one in sandwich driving, I think, doesn't it? Does it? Yeah, I feel like it does. I feel like it saves more than the one, I don't know, I can't remember. Either way, it's very late in a run. You know, you never actually, you know, yeah. But, like, those have been done before, you know, in some version of the game. We're about to look at one final thing, and it has been done. But never, like, while completing, like, a fast cycle. This is SCDA Fast Corkscrew. Imagine BBBH, but on steroids times 50. So, I'm just gonna show you. Yep. And the rest of the cycle is not exactly easy. Of course, we don't know how he'd react RTA, but it kind of seems like you get a more harsh cycle in general. That's what it seems like to me, anyway. It's a low TAD, which means a low optimized tool-assisted speedrun. So it's not like as perfect as a task could be, but it's probably still going to play better than RTA. So this saves 9.5 apparently, but considering it's a low TAD, it's probably more like 8.5. Like RTA. And, you know, in some categories, like I said before, you do SCDA Spongeball quite late in the run. And that makes this trick even harder. Again, you only have one opportunity. It's super late in the run. Wow, I'm just touching my camera and it's actually burning up. It's extremely hot. Jesus Christ. I'm not even using it right now. Because my shirt's off and stuff, and why would I need a webcam for these type of videos? So, as you can see, so you need to, like, have a really good line the whole time. This is fine on its own. Although it's actually possible to go too fast and get flips to this. You gotta, like, you know, that'd be a little hard, but not that bad. You don't have to, like, hug the side this much, but yeah, basically, you gotta, like, if I can use frame advance, you gotta bonk off of it in, like, such a perfect way that it pushes you forwards. It's never been done in ILs, it's never been done RTA, it's only been done, like, once or twice. Ever in, like, a practice setting. You could have a practice mod for this, but it wouldn't help, like, that much. But, yeah, like, this is relatively quick to practice. But yeah, any category that has SCDA Spongeball automatically benefits. This token's already really fast. It's like, after factoring grabbing the warp, it's like a minute 15, minute 20, I don't know. But now it's even faster. And yeah, it's I put it above everything else because it's never, ever been done in a run setting in any capacity. And there are a few other tricks like that. But was like some of them, like Weenie Out of Bounds, it could happen in Frogfish. I think it's more likely than not that it'll eventually be an A world record in Frogfish eventually. With some other tricks, they're not actually fast, like BBBH backwards mid-game. Like, this is, like, the hardest trick that is physically possible on NTSC OG. That isn't just, like... I don't know, I guess you could argue there's some other things are slightly harder, like Sandwich Out of Bounds. Like the one done in ILs. Like I said, you barely get over the invisible wall. But that being said, again, this has never been done in a run, or even in ILs. You know, like Sandwich Out of Bounds, as hard as it is, has been done in ILs, and it even has been done once on NTSC OG. So it might be a little cheaty to put this one last, but it's kind of here almost like as a glimmer, like, you know, some glimmer of hope. Maybe one day there could be some normalized thing for this. I don't doubt that if you grinded it to death, it'd be slightly more consistent, but I don't think it'd be more, like, a lot more consistent. But yeah, I mean, I guess that's basically it. We went from slightly inconsistent one frames to things that will never be done in runs to things that aren't even physically possible on the fast version of the game. And who knows, maybe we'll have some other really hard strats in future. But as it currently stands, these are TSSM's hardest strats. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.